Well, welcome everyone, or welcome back. Today we are doing a different episode since we have as much of Lost series in the bag that we can do right now until somebody streams it for free.
Yes. Yes.
We are doing kind of a interim movie before we get started on discussing the next series. And so I think this has kind of been on both of our lists for a little bit, but we're going to talk about the Thursday Murder Club. It is a Netflix exclusive, I guess, and it came out last year, directed by Chris Columbus, who has quite a pedigree of films. I was quite surprised, like Gremlins and I don't know. I didn't even write them down. I was just like, oh my gosh, he's done this, wow, this. So anyway, this movie comes with quite a pedigree behind the camera. It's also based on a book by Richard Osman, titled the same. And there's actually five books right now for this mystery. And at the time of us recording, they've already said that there's going to be a follow-up film. So quite excited about that. I did see Colin Firth's picture on the poster, so we're going to have a Colin Firth in this, as well as I'm sure our intrepid quartet. Um, but yeah, so Travis, are you excited about this morning's conversation?
Yeah, I'm actually also intrigued by the book series. So I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to see if my library has those in stock because this was a fun watch. Spoiler alert. It was really nice just to kind of just sit down and like just get fully immersed in it. I took some notes, but I found myself just kind of like getting lost within the characters and the chemistry between the characters. Yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to hearing your take and what you thought about all of the interactions and the characters and all that.
Yeah, so I like how you mentioned about chemistry because I that's one of my notes is chemistry with many of the characters or actors, and just we'll get the stellar list out of the way right now. We have Helen Mirren as Elizabeth, Pierce Brosnan as Ron, Ben Kingsley as A- Abraham. We've got Celia Emery as Joyce, along with David Tennant in a really nice sleazy role as Ian Fintham. We've got Naomi Aki, I think, who plays PC D. Freitas. We've got Daniel Mays, Henry Lloyd Hughes in a really good role as Bogum, and then Richard E. Grant as um, Bobby Tanner, also Derek Ward, and then of course Tom Ellis, who's known for his role in Lucifer. So we've really got a really nice stacked group of British actors in this film, and they were all great to see. And as you alluded to, the chemistry is just a whole lot of fun. So if you're good with it, Travis, I'll go ahead and give an overview, plot synopsis. There was a lot going on, and I
Yeah.
really kind of went with the highlights. And I do have a little scorecard that I'll kind of mention at the end, because there is so many different story threads going on, but they do manage to really intertwine them well and give a real cohesive tapestry for this movie. So, without further ado, retirement does not mean passing the time completing puzzles, sipping tea, and watching picturesque English sunsets. A quartet of pensioners, Elizabeth, Ron, Abraham, and newcomer Joyce, who are residents of the Cooper's Chase Retirement Home, are also members of the Thursday Murder Club, or TMC, not to be confused with the movie channel. Um, the quartet gather to solve a cold case that has been investigated by another member, Penny, who's now in hospice care, but had been a detective back in 1973. The cold case involved the murder of Angela Hughes, a young woman who was stabbed and pushed out of a second-story apartment window. Fast forward to today, or now, the quartet, as well as the other residents, gather for a personal security presentation by PC de Freitas. She is a recent transfer from London, but the criminal element of the metro city did not prepare her for our quartet of investigators. When Tony Kieran, one of the investors and main proponent for keeping Cooper's Close open for business, is murdered, the TMC bring in the young constable as their inside person. A relationship forms as they work together, passing vital information back and forth to the young detective as well as her veteran lead detective, Hudson. With Kieran gone, sleazy developer in Fentham, think David Tennant with very slicked back hair, uh, designer jeans, tight button down shirt, and of course, slick glasses, can move forward with his plans to redevelop Cooper's Close into luxury flats. TMC get a hold of important financial documents that reveal that there was a third investor of the retirement home. Ventham runs into a protest at the cemetery, and while he deals with the mob, his Polish handyman enters from the back gate and starts digging to help Ventham get his plan underway. However, Ventham collapses and dies on the spot of the protest. The TMC now has a second murder to solve. Well, along the way, Elizabeth, who is the leader of TMC, receives a few anonymous threats, which she is able to deduce where this fellow Tanner, who is a drug lord and had disappeared many years ago, what he might be up to nowadays. And let's just say it's quite a surprise, his new career. A visit helps clear up some of the mystery, as well as put Elizabeth in the position to dictate a favorable real estate sale of the retirement home that will keep Cooper's Close open and a sequel. Additionally, through the combined teamwork of TMC and the young detective, they solve the murders of Kieran, Vintham, as well as a cold case of Angela Hughes. So to recap, there's been a few murders. So let's talk about what's been going on. So there was the woman in white, that's the cold case of Angela Hughes, Tony Kieran, Ian Bentham, and the mystery skeleton in the cemetery, which turns out to be integral to the cold case. There's been the disappearance of Bobby Tanner, a major drug lord who now goes by Derek Ward and has a new career. But then we've also got Bogdan, who kind of represents kind of a commentary on this forced labor. So basically, immigrants that are brought into the UK illegally are made to work and their passports are held for ransom, basically. Elizabeth learns about this, and Bogdan keeps talking about his sick mom and that he's sending money to his sick mom, and it comes out that he's not able to return, and this is why. Um, we also have murderers, and I won't spoil that, but we do have multiple murderers in this story, which I help again think that it really helps kind of solidify this kind of complex tapestry and threads running throughout. Um, the only other thing that I'd like to say, and this is more behind the scenes, and that is that as I mentioned earlier, Chris Columbus has an extensive pedigree of films. And he's also known as a sentimental filmmaker. And I think that really comes through. He really is into filming relationships and dysfunction and things like that. And I think it really just, you know, I definitely understand how this really works within kind of his approach to filmmaking. But that is the Thursday Murder Club plot synopsis, scorecard,
That was
and
good.
a little highlight of the various characters that I know that we'll dig a little more deeply into because Elizabeth, Ron, Abraham, and Joyce, while they are pensioners, they bring a real bag of tricks and skills to this quartet of investigators. So with that, Travis, I know you said that you really liked it. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I really liked it. Um, Anything that I missed or anything that stands out for you that you enjoyed about the film and the chemistry?
Um, well, something I'll say aside from the cast, who I think does a phenomenal job. I really liked the camera work. I felt like he, they were able to focus on the characters while providing like pretty nice backdrops. Whether it's like, the garden area or, the decorative rooms. It just seemed like you were really enveloped within the environment of these characters, which kind of made it feel like I don't know, like it made it feel a little more personal just because you could kind of get a sense of where they were um and just like the little fun one-liners. Like I think one of the things that Ben Kingsley said in the movie when they're talking about trying to solve the case, and he's like, "Oh, well, we've also got the sewing room coming in an hour, so we better." Like they just kind of like, you get an understanding of like, oh, these people are on a schedule, and they're trying to solve, one or two murders. And it just really helped to make the movie like light and fun. But like you said, with the director's sentimental nature, there are some dramatic moments. I think the very first note after watching the movie, it was like, okay, what comes to my brain? It
Yeah,
was the uh Ibrahim's character giving a little um we'll call it a toast. Um, celebrating a couple characters and just talking
mm,
about the love of friendship and being connected together. And I just was like, I thought it was very moving. Um,
I did too. I have that in my notes because I feel like I thought he did his character really does a nice job summarizing kind of the journey of all the characters, old and new. Really, and I think the movie touches on different dynamics. You have a husband and wife, you have a father and son, you have a mother and daughter. Um, One of the parent-child relationships, is appears to be very good, and the child is coming to visit, enjoys visiting the parent and things like that. But then you find underneath that surface there's some unresolved issues that they come to terms with. Another um you know parent and child deal with this transition, after a spouse dies, and then the surviving spouse, what they're doing and what they're looking to do, and kind of parent what they want to do versus child expectations. And so, we get an exploration of those various um, relationships throughout the film. And again, Abraham does such a lovely job recapping and summarizing. And like you said, with the camera work, you get those shots of those different people and you see them together and they've resolved some of those issues by the end of the film. That's very, very nice. Yeah, it's just a lovely ensemble of characters, and they, the the acting is just absolutely brilliant, I think. And the choice of various actors to be part of this. I didn't even mention that we have Jonathan Price, who plays Stephen, Elizabeth's husband, who is, has his good days and bad days. I did work at a retirement home, so my guess is that he's starting to slip into Alzheimer's. And that is a really very hard, um, debilitating disease, and it's really crushing to see somebody's light just kind of become, dimmer and
Yeah.
finally extinguish. And I think they did I think Columbus did a very nice job, spotlighting without spending too much time on it, but just giving you enough flavor. We even have a character, she's a secondary character, but um, she's hearing a lot of different things, but she's not necessarily, at the forefront. She's not part of the club, but she does hear things. She knows things. Um, and she's also uh, you know, portraying a particular dynamic of when mature people go and live in a retirement home. And like you, I like the fact that they touch in there different flavors of being in a retirement home. Oh, we've got to get, we've only got the rompus room for an hour before they're going to come in and sew. Or yes, we're in the puzzle room. In the back of the board is their crime scene, their mind map of suspects and victims and things like that. That just is, it he gives so much detail. I even noticed when they first talked with Joyce and the Elizabeth, Ron, and Abraham come to her because they've got crime scene photos from the 1973. And I don't know if you picked up, but she goes to look at the picture, and here's a little hanky actually hanging out of her sleeve. And that is so, my grandmother used to do that.
Okay.
She had her little hanky in her sleeve. That was just the way people did that. So I really thought that Columbus captured nuances of these characters and well. And I mean, it feels authentic. It feels real.
Totally.
You get the sense that there is a quartet of pensioners over there in the UK solving murders, and having a real fun, relationship that speaks to all their strengths. So,
And I also like just how the representation of various stages of life and
mhm.
not even like the fact that they're in a retirement village, which by the way, is there
It,
a is there a wait list for this place?
I
Um,
know.
but even with Ron's son, he was this,
Mhm,
superstar prize fighter, and an injury means he's got to pivot and he's doing like, appearances on cooking shows or, something a la Dancing with the Stars and
mhm.
just the idea that, sometimes things change in life. And just having that added element, not just specifically focusing on the club group and,
Yeah.
their, brief past lives when, I think when they met up with Donna, she was asking what everyone did. And, you
Mhm.
know, Ron was like a union, uh,
He
Oh,
led a union, and he kind of downplayed what he had done. But
trade
Abraham kind of tells
unionist.
Yeah, Abraham, like, oh, don't undersell yourself. I thought that was such a nice, natural way to introduce everybody.
Yeah.
And they ran around the table, and of course, the mystery woman is Elizabeth, played by just fabulously by Helen Mirren, who is kind of in a similar role to when she was in I think it's Red with Bruce
Yes.
Willis, and that was also an ensemble cast. She's just absolutely phenomenal, and of course, she just like plays it off. Oh well, I was in international affairs. Well, we find out that she's retired MI6 officer and probably really high up because she had a very nice car, by the way.
Yeah, she said it was a retirement gift.
I know. I'm kind of like, and she has lots of connections and she plays it so well. And what's kind of funny is that as we're recording this, there's been on YouTube commercials with her where she's actually, I think it's like she's advertising WFC or something like that, which is just totally off the wall. Um, but she sells it,
Yeah.
and she sells it here. I mean, she delivers. And just love her.
I
So,
mean, with the cast, I think is outstanding. I mean,
yeah.
she's the top. She's her reactions and the way everyone plays off each other.
Hmm.
But she also, sees the value of Donna and their interactions. They have phenomenal chemistry. Um, and she's the one who she actually tells like she what she used to do.
Hmm.
Um, and albeit towards the end of the film, but um, yeah, I really think that the way that they put everything together, I decided to uh, write a small article for my Substack, you know, little plug in there, the Neverending Streamer. I haven't published it yet, but like my thoughts on that was like I don't have any. There's no negative comment. There's no, you know, I didn't have any pause with the pacing of the story or any
Yeah.
gaps in the storyline. Like none of that. It just seemed flawless, which is I I like talking about movies that I like. Um, and so a lot of times you don't find me writing about movies that I'm not fond of.
Hmm.
Um, but I also will know that, sometimes if I like something, I can understand why someone might not enjoy a movie. I can't fathom anyone not liking this movie. I just think it's so well done. Even if you're not into murder mysteries, like, the comedic timing, the little
Yeah.
one-liners, even Donna's boss, like he kind of
Oh,
is like
Hudson,
this,
yeah.
kind of like this, um, what's the word? Not goofy, but he's like, oh, I'm gonna eat while I work in the car, and you could see him being the type that maybe spills food and has stains on his clothes, or um, but then he has a scene with Donna as they're, you know, communicating with David Tennant's character, and he's a sharp,
Yeah.
like, and so you just have this like duality of like, these mishmash of characters within one. And then he also gets, super pissed off at the Thursday Murder Club for interfering, even though they're like 5 steps ahead of the police force.
I know
It's just, yeah,
I love how they actually really played off each other. Like, the club really needed to know the time of murder. Because they needed to be able, Abraham needed to be able to then have that scene where he's taking his time driving between point A and point B to see if it's actually possible that Venham had gone over and killed Kieran because that's what they were thinking is that he killed him. Um, Initially, and the fact that through his algorithm he was able to determine, nope, that's not possible. They text over to Donna, and then Donna's telling Hudson, and then it's like, oh, but my man was just working on that, and and then he gets the information from her, and then Griffith comes up and says,
I
well,
felt
yeah,
so bad for him.
I know, poor guy. He's just trying to do his job. He ain't got a chance. But Hudson, I agree. That could have been a total buffoon in that role. They could have really made it that way. And there's weaknesses and strengths in every character, and I think Columbus really tries to play to both and give it kind of, flawed characters that sometimes succeed, sometimes don't. But the message is, teamwork in the end, can get it done. And I like that. There's been some criticism with the film kind of revolving around the portrayal of ageism. And now, when I lived in England, I didn't go to any retirement homes, but I did live with a woman that was older, and it was a generational type of living situation. So, I don't know what their retirement homes are like, but I mean, I worked at a retirement home in the U.S. afterwards, and it definitely was not a manor house, but the activities that are planned, communal eating and things like that, that is there. You also have what I liked is the dynamic of the different relationships that we see. And I do think that, yes, there are more outgoing pensioners, and there's also the ones that are more quiet. And I think you see that with like, I think it's Aunt Maud, who's the quieter one, maybe not as involved, a little more disconnected with her family. And, you know, I think that we see a lot of starry-eyed portrayal of ageism with these characters. But I'm willing to forgive that because they do give a little nods to some of the other stuff. Um, they don't get heavy-handed. Columbus doesn't get heavy-handed into a lot of social commentary, just enough to give you, thoughts and about things, about family dynamics. It's more about that,
Yeah.
I think, the dynamic between people, and particularly families. I'm willing to give a pass on the ageism. I mean, it is kind of caricature that um, Ron, played by Pierce Brosnan, has to scruff up as Abraham tells him. And that is just absolutely hilarious. I mean, to the point that he puts, like shoe polish on a one of his teeth. Okay, that's a little bit over the top, but um, you know, it's still a nice, it's humor, you
Yeah.
know, and it's fun, and they're trying to serve a larger purpose. So you've got to rely on a little bit of tropes when you're developing characters. Um, you only have was a 2-hour movie. You only have so much time in which to resonate with your audience. And this isn't meant to be a deep, thoughtful film. This is meant to be entertaining, a nice, cozy mystery, something you grab a cup of tea or hot chocolate or, your martini, and you relax and you have a bit of fun, um, and solve 3 or 4 murders,
Yeah.
in a 2-hour period. So I think we have to look at it that way, you know. So
Yeah, and also in my mind, based off of like previous films, whether it's you're talking about like you know, civilized activities, an older generation, you would, maybe the trope is that it would be a much slower film. But this did not feel like a 2 hour movie. I felt like it
Mm-mm.
went by really quickly. Which again I think is you know, a nod to like how well the movie's produced and the interactions, and there's just a playfulness to it that I really appreciate. But they do, like you said, they do bring in some like, you know, Joyce's daughter for whatever reason.
Hmm.
She's too busy to, but apparently there's a reason. She must be wealthy as all get out. But like Joyce finally needs help with something and just tells her daughter to like, for one, give me 2 minutes of your damn time to help
Yeah.
your one and only mother out. So
There's
I
no
do
guilt
like that.
there at all. But
Yeah.
yeah, Joyce, who's kind of this soft-spoken, easygoing, has some different moments where, she gets to shine as an independent woman. That's one of them, where she decides, uh, you know, you're my child. I let you, have this, but, damn it, I need you. And, I'm not going to take no for an answer. Um, Give a little bit to me that we see in that, because Joyce's daughter doesn't seem to have time, isn't taking time. And in fact, Joyce says, you never can visit me longer than 47 minutes. That's something right there.
Yeah.
She notices and the daughter's not noticing. And then, her solution is that, well, maybe mom should live closer. Well, that's also not the answer because her mom wants to, make friends,
Yeah.
after, being with her husband. And she even says, oh, I'm not used to making these kinds of decisions. There's some nice, very subtle nuances. And Joyce, I love her. I love how Ron tells her at the end, now that, when she does become a full member, that she needs to remember her ABCs. And Joyce says, ooh, what's that? Always bring cake. I just love that. Again, a nice humorous moment, great delivery, nice chemistry between Ron and Joyce. Just a little bit of flirtation. Who knows? Maybe something will come of that. But who knows? But yeah, very, very fun. Well, I know we are coming up on our break. So maybe when we get back, we can maybe transition into our usual questions. We have two of them, favorite character and favorite scene. So we'll take a break and let people wonder how many favorite characters we're going to have on our list and how many favorite scenes we're going to have on our list. And how do they compare with what's on your list? So we'll be right back and yeah, we'll continue talking about the Thursday Murder Club.
Hey everyone. Just want to say thank you for joining Right the Stream. Um, we appreciate you for watching or having us on the background. If you haven't had the opportunity, please like this video, maybe give it a subscribe. Really gives Michelle and I a boost to see when that happens. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. And if you can, pass Ride the Stream along, and we'll get back to the conversation.
And welcome back to the second part of our discussion of the Thursday Murder Club. We are going to kind of ease our way into our favorite character and scene. And I'm kind of thinking maybe we start with our favorite scene. What do you
Okay.
think?
Yeah.
Um, Were you able to narrow it down to one, or you kind of got a short list of a few?
I have a few. I think there were four or five that stood out. I already mentioned the kind of speech from Ibrahim
Hmm.
earlier in our chat. I would probably list that as an honorable mention. Um, if I have to pick one, um, I would probably go with the maybe the conversation with Elizabeth and Donna and the florist. Um,
Huh?
and subsequently she asks Donna to leave so she can speak privately with Derek Ward. Um, and it's a very like it's probably the most jarring scene just because of the the way the character, they're in this basement of this, you know, florist, and he's just has these big shears, he's snapping off stems of roses. He's blood all down his arms, I guess, from cuts and stuff, um and just the kind of the anticipation of, well, what the hell's about to happen down here? And, you know, and he's kind of, this gangster who's retired with the only passion he's ever known of working with flowers, but
Hmm.
he still has like this sharp edge and knows how to, I guess, hurt people. And so, but you get so much information from that conversation. Um, and, you know, And on the flip side, when she asks Donna to leave,
Hmm.
you know, she kind of barters with Bobby Tanner about, keeping his secret life a
Hmm.
secret. Um, but also, throws out her own threats. Um, and I just like the way that they kind of, that's not the end of the movie, but I feel like that kind of encapsulates her character,
Hmm.
and what she's able and willing to do, not just for herself, but for her friends. Um, and yeah, I mean, and just I still think about, I'm thinking about, I'm thinking the way the guy's cutting the stems off the flower. I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna cut one of his fingers off. He's just so like,
Well, and the sound
dark.
of the snip is
Yeah.
just so sharp. I really felt like that scene. It was just very sharply and focused, very gritty, like you said, because it is in a basement. Um, it is a marked turn. And that's one of the more dark, gritty scenes. Um, that Helen Mirren, you know, does brilliantly. And of course, let's see, it is Richard E. Grant that plays Bobby Tanner, another veteran British actor, and they do a fantastic job. But he's so imposing. And Helen Mirren, is, small in stature, but as much a giant in that room as he is. I love the visuals, like you said, with the blood on his arm, the shears, the really deep, deep red roses. He takes time to sniff them when um his cohort comes down the stairs, just yip yapping. He looks up and he just kind of goes like that, while Elizabeth has her back turned, and it's just really, again, like you said earlier about shots, forefronting versus blurred background, and really getting some really beautiful shots in there. I think the other very dangerous moment is again Elizabeth, but with Bogdan. And they actually have like three kind of pivotal scenes. One is where she talks with him in the cemetery because he's gone off to do Vintham's work, by getting started digging in the cemetery. And she says that she's Marina. Her name's Marina because she sees the tattoo, which, she uses to her advantage. And, he asks, well, what were you doing in Poland? That Polish. Oh, I was in the circus. Well, yeah, okay. Don't believe that one, but, whatever. And just the way that there's some sort of connection for them as well. And I think part of it is the fact that, she speaks Polish with him. I think that's a big thing. She connects with him, at his cultural and kind of familial um uh, layer. And then they end up talking again when he's in her apartment with Stephen, and the fact that he's playing chess with Steven. So it shows a complexity. This is not just a handyman guy. That's what he's been reduced to here, in the United Kingdom, but he had a life before. He was
Yeah.
something else before, which I think echoes and with regards to the pensioners. And you even get that in the protest where, you know, Ron says, these are bankers, these are professors, these are professional. He lists off like about four or five different professions. Um, and I think that's really important, that looks can be deceiving. You can't judge a book by its cover because there's a lot of depth inside,
Yep.
and that when you put a label on something that's not accurate. So I really like the commentary around that. And then they end up in another scene together where um, Stephen, talks to him about what he's observing. And um, I thought that was really an astute moment as well. I mean, the fellow that plays Bogdan is Henry Lloyd Hughes, and just even as I think he's also a veteran actor, but he is younger. He's in a younger generation, but all of them hold their own. Like all
Yeah.
these, like, massive veteran British actors. And then you've got these others that are coming up in the ranks. And they all play beautifully together and they make beautiful music. But to get back to your point, I think those scenes too have definitely an element of danger, potential threat, a lot of tension. Um, and then you juxtapose that later with Elizabeth talking with John, who is Penny's husband.
Yeah.
And just you go from danger to really heartbreak. Um, and it's again beautifully done, and wonderful scenes. But yeah, I love that juxtaposition of yes, everything, we're having fun. This is important work. It's police business, as they're told to stay out of, but they don't. Um, and yeah, we do get to see some of those dangerous situations. I like
Yeah.
that.
Um, did you have a top?
Um, I just had lists of various ones. I couldn't really decide on a top one, because as we talk, it kind of, it's fluid and organic,
Yeah.
and it kind of moves around as we talk about different ones. But like I had Abraham's message, we'll leave it at that. Donna, when she first arrives at the retirement, I just love how here's a person who'd worked in London, so she's got pizzazz. She's got the common sense, the streetwise, but she's now in a rural, more country living location, and it's a different speed of life. It would be like going from, you know, some London detective, to Midsummer Murders. It's a bit different.
Yeah.
But I really love how, you know, she's in there to talk about, safety doors, personal safety. And I love how she basically gets heckled by the pensioners. Like, she's trying to do what she's been tasked to do. But again, she's going under assumption of certain labels and that, she's going to bring this knowledge. And it's like, you got to remember who you're talking to. These are not just pensioners, they're bankers, they're professors, they're professional people, um, international spy, you know, trade unionist leader, a psychiatrist, and things like that get kind of dumbed down and put into a little label. And so I really liked that scene as well when they end up sitting around having lunch together, and they kind of represent themselves who they are. And
Yeah.
it really is so lovely, that they really embrace their various characters so well. And it's just very natural. Um, a paper that I've always been interested in doing is a paper about food, like a family meal and how that's portrayed, and how it really is very telling for different characters. You really get to see it's like all the all the various veneers and layers are kind of stripped back, and you really kind of see the essence of people. I mean, if you think about like Alien, for instance, and the very popular, very seminal meal with the alien bursting out and stuff like that. But you see like a pivotal meal scene in various films. And so we have one here, and we get to meet all the players. It's very natural. And I like how that's done. It's it's a lovely meal versus if it was some other sort of narrative uh technique where you're basically telling, not really showing. It's hard to explain, and I'm not articulating it as well as I should, but I do
I
feel that
think we get it. Yeah.
yeah, this is such a lovely way. So that was on my list.
Can
Um,
I make a quick point about that scene you mentioned with Donna being introduced?
yeah.
When they're doing when I think Ron is doing the heckling and he's talking
Mhm.
about like, oh, look, we got to worry about burglars or whatever. And someone makes a comment and says, where is it? I know I quoted it. A woman sitting next to Ron says, oh, I'd like to have a burglar. It'd be nice to have a visitor. And
Oh, I
Donna's
know.
expression just like goes like, oh, like,
Yeah.
and it was such a funny moment. And her response, her facial expression, and she just says one word, oh, and it was so funny.
Hmm.
Um, and that kind of made the reality of like, oh, what I was going to bring here today is just not going to jive, which leads to them having lunch together, which sets the tone of like, oh, who each every person was.
Yep.
And you also see like how perceptive Donna is, like
Hmm.
when, you know, because she's kind of going around the room and gaining information about each
Hmm.
person. And then when, you know, Helen Mirren, Elizabeth says that she has like a wide array of skills or something, and Donna's doing a little bit of a side eye towards her and be like, there's more to you.
Yeah.
Um, so I agree. I had that listed as one of my top scenes for sure.
One of my other scenes, since we both had those. I really loved the setup to get Donna into the investigation of Tony Kieran. Uh, Kieran, yeah. The fact that Elizabeth and Joyce, dress up. And I love how Steven says, "Oh my gosh, you look like the queen." And of course, I love that little tidbit because of course Helen Mirren played the queen in a movie. So I thought that was so lovely. What a great, little nod to one of her other roles. And I'm sure there's others that maybe I just didn't pick up on, but um I just thought the setup was, just so much fun. Them going in there to the police station and, Elizabeth saying that, her purse has been snatched. And immediately, Joyce says, outside of Marks and Spencer's. And, they really play off of each other. I just love it. And then, of course, it's fun because, Elizabeth is like, well, I must have a lady detective. And the fellow that's there seems like he would have been completely, empathetic to her situation. And Joyce just comes back. She's a nun. I love it. I know that's got to be something too, somewhere back there in somebody's filmography. But I
And
just loved
Elizabeth
it.
was like, "Oh yeah, that was brilliant. I wish I would have thought of that."
Yeah, and then at the back at the home, you've got Abraham and Ron setting up their own little scenario to get Donna onto the investigation, and of course she's inter it takes them into the interview room when they're at the two ladies are at the police station, and how Joyce is so observant about the fact, oh yes, an officer is trying to repress a smile. Uh, just so good. That
It
that
was
whole
really,
scene, the way they set it up, is just really so much fun. Again, and all that chemistry that's there with all the various characters, even Hudson, his chemistry with everybody. So.
yeah. And when Elizabeth asked Donna if she would want to be a part of the murder investigation, and she's like, "Okay, give me an hour." And
Mhm.
then it's like 20 minutes later that she gets put on, and she's like, "You got me put on in 20 minutes? WTF?" And they're on the bus, and Helen Mirren is asking Joyce, "What is WTF?" And Joyce is just like, "What the fuck?" And there's like a little kid and her mom sitting next to them.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, that was a fun scene, and I don't know. Obviously it's kind of funny that Helen Mirren went a character might not know what WTF is. Um, but Joyce also seems to be a little computer savvy, because her daughter says, "Oh, well, Mom, do you even know what a PDF is?" And it's like, okay, again, these little subtle things where, you think that you're having to take care of your parent, that your parent doesn't know anything, and yet they do. You need to give them the benefit of the doubt. And that, yes, that could have been, oh yes, mom doesn't know technology. That could have been an easy stereotype to kind of like play in there, and Columbus doesn't. He does try to do some twists and turns with those stereotypes of our more mature population.
yeah,
So
yeah.
any others on your list? I
Uh,
think I've got one more for me when you're done.
um, I did have the scene at towards the end with talking with
Hmm.
Penny's husband. Um, I did list. I think the last one I had was just Ron acting unstable, um, which was part of like getting Donna onto the case. Just because Ibrahim tells him, "All right, you described the word of how he scruffy or."
He had to
Um,
scruff up.
rough up, thank you.
Yep.
And when they finally get back to the scene where he's scruffed up, it was so much more intense than I thought it was gonna be. Like he's like a dirty shirt. Looks like he's got like vomit here, and
Oh,
he's like wearing
our food dripping down and in his beard. I mean, it was disgusting. He
yeah, and
really did
like
scruff up, and
trash
his hair was
everywhere.
all weird, trash all around his apartment. Um, yeah, this is what Bond has been reduced to.
So I thought that was really well done, and just because it's semblance of lunacy to a degree, and I liked how at the after the that scene was over, and like Ron was complimenting Ibrahim for I guess, the idea and his role in convincing that, he is his therapist and,
Yeah,
he's in a bad place today. And uh, it just, yeah, it was, and I think, like you said earlier, like the scene blends, the movie kind of just is so fluid. Like as we're talking, I'm just thinking of all these other scenes,
yeah.
like, um, so it's
There were
really,
so many scenes that just really stand out and yet are part of the whole. So yeah. The other one that I had was actually at the protest. I like how Ron reminds Ian that they're not just pensioners, which I think, kind of hits home that yeah, you could label them pensioners, but that's not their identity. They had an identity. They were, a productive member of society on all these various levels. And I think people tend to forget that, particularly, well, I work in retail, and that's not what my profession was, but I'm reaching retirement age. And I know that when I work in retail, I come across a lot of more mature people who are retired. And, I think that sometimes there are people that will kind of label them, oh, well, you know, they kind of minimize, you know, who they are. And it's always nice and surprising when you get to find out. I try to get to know some of the people that are regulars. And sometimes you just have to hit on the right conversation note. And, those type of, them being subject matter experts in these various professions, come out. Um, for example, there is a woman who does paper crafting, and she, is um take needs to take a little more time. Um, but that doesn't mean that she's slow in other aspects. And I actually found out that she was a special ed teacher back in the day. And as soon as I got her on that conversation, talking a bit with her, because of course, with talking with Megan, your lovely wife, to find out more about it, I've learned over the years a bit more about special ed. And when talking with this woman, I mean, it was like night and day. When it's something that doesn't just, oh, you're 65, you don't have anything before you. And this woman like went into, well, yes, I did do, special, yeah, it was hard work. And, I was instituting a program, and I mean, it was like a whole different conversation. And it's, there's a lot more than just what you see at the surface. And, again, I really liked how that scene showed that there's more to them. And then at the tail end of the scene, Ron's son, Jason, who, is our celebrity, played brilliantly by Tom Ellis, who was Lucifer. It's hard to not see Lucifer when I look at him, but um, he comes up with the chanting slogan, because the protesting is in his blood. His dad, you get those nuances. Obviously, he picked that up from his dad doing his various protests and being part of the union. And that's just kind of nice. You see that generational thing. Again, lovely nuances to various scenes. And I really like the message that, hey, these are not just pensioners. They are, you know, and he lists off, different
They're
professions
fully
that
capable.
are fully
Like,
capable. Yeah,
an age doesn't like getting to a certain age doesn't mean like you haven't done things before. Like
exactly.
I agree with you. I do feel like there is that semblance of if maybe whether you see it in film or in the real world where, just because you're of a certain age doesn't mean like your life has stopped or that you've
Mhm.
completely slowed down or anything like that. I mean,
And
uh
everybody has
yeah.
a legacy. Just because that legacy isn't out there screaming into the public that, they did this or that, or they have a Wikipedia page that tells everybody about them, about that person. Everybody does have a legacy. It may be a quiet one or it may be very loud in public, but everybody has value, everybody has a legacy. They've contributed to the continued progress of our society, you know. Anyway, I really like that scene.
Yeah. Um so I that's all of the scenes I listed. Um
Okay.
so
Well, I guess that brings us to our next question, our second question, of our ongoing various conversations, and that is your favorite character. And how tough was it to get to a favorite character? And did you get to a favorite character?
so first I will say I love this cast. I think they nailed it with every person that they got to play the role that they played. And saying that, for me, Helen Mirren, like she is so wonderful in this movie. There's just I feel like maybe because you're getting a little bit more of her, relationship with Steven, her husband, and she talks about the good and the bad days. We only see the good, um, but you understand that she's trying to manage a lot. Um, but she like is completely uh relevant
Mhm.
in her life and in her friends' lives, and I just think she's fantastic. So my favorite character of the movie was her.
Well, I would have to agree. In rewatching and as we discuss, I had everybody, but rising to the top is Helen Mirren, Helen Mirren,
Yes.
by the way.
Yes.
I did look as we were chit-chatting because I was like, there's no way that she doesn't have an OBE, and if she does. And I thought about everybody got time on the screen. I think everybody got quite a bit of time, but I do think that Helen Mirren did get quite a bit of time, and she got to really act with quite a variety of the actors in the movie, as well as play a lot of tough scenes, which I think really helped to define. She's also the only one that of the group that's married. So we get to see that extra dynamic of her with her husband, someone who's been an international spy, who has the love of her life kind of, fading before her eyes, and having to deal with that. And so at the end of the day, with all the various scenes, I went with her as well. I just think she just, in every scene, I mean, they all nail it, but I just think that we got a little bit more of her, and a little more, a faceted study of her character, in this film. So I don't know about you, but I'm very anxious for number two.
Yeah.
And how that plays out. And, um, maybe the focus will, it's kind of natural that it would be her because, sighting number one, Mr. Max is in the house, in the room. Um, she is the leader of the group. So it kind of natural that maybe she might have a few more scenes, but, um, yeah, it's her all the way. Team Helen Mirren.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Um, did you have a third question? If not, I had a quick and easy one.
Oh, okay, cool. Um, no, I didn't have a third question. So lay it on me. What's your
Uh,
third?
quick and easy. Just thinking of the conversation with the floors,
Mhm.
Elizabeth and Bobby Tanner. Who are you more afraid of in that moment? Like, like
You
who's a
know,
scarier character?
it. Okay, so this is my reasoning. It's going to be Elizabeth, and the reason being is because she's quiet, she's mysterious. We don't know the full depth of what she can and cannot do. Versus Tanner Ward, who is, again, it's kind of that legacy conversation where some are quiet, still waters run deep, versus somebody that's very loud and it's all out there and the reputation.
Yeah,
So, yeah, for me, it would be Elizabeth because she is a mystery woman. So,
yeah. Um,
and
I,
you,
uh, it might be the not that she's not as as dangerous as Bobby Tanner, or like I think if they had a fight, I think she would end up like winning. There's something about the description of what we heard about Bobby Tanner's character was like he would cut people's fingers off.
hmm
And so hearing those shears and the stems of the flower is kind of like I I want to keep my fingers. So that's like all I have in my brain is when I think of him, like, oh my gosh, I can only imagine. So my initial thought was like, I don't want to be anywhere near that guy
hmm
because I could feel I'd want to be in the presence of Elizabeth.
yeah.
I wouldn't want to be in his presence.
True, true, true.
So that's
Did
how
you find yourself doing this with your fingers as you were watching?
I was just like, ah, it's those shears are so the sound was so piercing.
I actually wonder if he snipped like 10 times during that scene for 10 fingers.
Oh.
I just thought of that because I'm like, oh, fingers. I wonder if that was 10. So,
Well, this is definitely a rewatchable movie. I know I will rewatch it
yeah,
multiple times. So I'll have to pay attention to that next time, and we'll
yeah.
talk offline about that.
Yeah, yeah. But definitely thumbs up for me. Can't wait for the second. And watching this film, yeah, I'm going to be hitting my local library and seeing if I can't read the books because uh, the filmic adaptation is just absolutely brilliant. So I'm hoping the book, in this case, lives up to the film.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think we'll go ahead and tie this case up with a nice little ribbon, and maybe a little medallion commemorating TMC for now. Thank you so much for joining us, and definitely, hey, go downstairs, write down what your favorite character, what your favorite scene is. We'd love to hear about it. If you do a spoiler, just do a nice little note at the top that says that you're spoiling something. I think we kept a little bit secret. So in our conversation, but we also did reveal a little bit as well. But anyway, again, thank you again for joining us today. And next week, we will be starting a new series. Have we actually revealed what our next series?
I don't think so.
Should we gift people that lasted all the way through with our next series?
Sure.
Would you like to reveal?
We are going to be covering the season 1 of Falling Skies
Yay!
with Noah Wiley. So, is it Wiley or Weil? Is it Wiley?
Hmm.
Noah Weil?
Maybe it's Wild. Maybe it's Wooly. I don't know. In any case, it's going to be a fun conversation about aliens. Woo! Can't wait.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah. So definitely join us for that. And if you want a little homework, watch the first episode of the first season. So that way you can join us and not feel any spoils. And we're going into it again. Travis is the veteran. I've watched the first season and started into the second. But this is a series that I didn't know about until it came on Netflix. So definitely excited to converse about this. And I'll do a shameless plug. I did edit a book on horror and space, but it also talks about alien invasions here on our own planet. So it'll be kind of fun to pull in a little bit of that into our conversation as we go through the first season of Falling Skies. So definitely join us. And yeah, thank you for being here today, joining us. I hope you've had fun. And we will see you next week. Travis, thank you so much. Really enjoyed always our conversations with all
Always.
things pop
Likewise.
culture. Very happy to be on Ride the Stream with you. And until next week, we bid you all an adieu.